Right, on today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Trick or Treat Studios replicas of the Don Post Halloween 3 masks. You've got the skull, the witch, and the pumpkin. And all in all, I think Todd's done a really good job on 2 out of 3 of these masks, and one of them I find to be pretty underwhelming, to be fair. But let's have a look at them individually, and yeah, let's get into it. Right, first up, let's take a look at the witch. Now, Don Post originally had these in production around 1981, like a year or so before the film came out. It was originally called Hagatha, the Hag, or simply a witch mask, to be honest. And there is subtle differences between the Trick or Treat Studios and the Don Post, and the differences mainly are the green itself is a lot more dulled down. It's kind of like a browny green. The warts on the mask have got like a yellow shadow around them, to be honest. It's not much, but there is like a tinge of yellow on the warts, and also the hood itself is black. Obviously, once it came to the release of the film, they started adding the green hood, which I'm not sure if that was on request of the film for some reason, but that's where the green hood comes from. And with it being Halloween 3 mask, that's why Trick or Treat Studios have actually gone with the green hood, because obviously the black hood comes from the Don Post original sculpt. Yeah, but as far as the look of this mask, I mean, does it get much more classic and iconic than that sculpt? If someone says to you, what does a witch mask look like, you think of that, don't you? Let's be honest. There's plenty of little crappy rip-offs of that kind of sculpt, and it's quintessential classic vintage Halloween. It captures that 80s Halloween aesthetic perfectly. I absolutely love the sculpt of the witch, to be honest. And yet the actual quality of the Trick or Treat Studios replica is really good as well. Like I say, there is subtle differences, which there is always going to be. But all in all, I think they've done a really good job of capturing the look and feel of the witch mask from Don Post. I don't think many collectors can be too annoyed at that. You've also got the Silver Shamrock tag with it being Halloween 3 masks, which they're always going to include them, but I do love the fact that they've got them tags on. I think that's such an amazing touch. Like I say, it was always going to be there, but it's great. But yeah, I just absolutely adore this. It screams vintage classic Halloween, and it's about as iconic as a witch mask can get, really, isn't it? Tots have done a really respectful replica of the original, to be honest. I don't think it strays too far from the Don Post mask. And yeah, I don't think many collectors can be too mad at this Tots release, because I personally think it's amazing. And if you're trying to pick up a Don Post original, mate, you're not getting one for £60 or whatever these cost. Like, you're not getting close to that, to be honest. So to be able to have a version that's fairly close, I think that's incredible, to be honest. So yeah, I'm all for this. I think that's an amazing mask by Tots, and it displays so well with the 3 of them as well. They look great together. Like, but yeah, the witch. Right, next up we will talk about the pumpkin. Now, the pumpkin was originally called Pumpkinhead, or the Pumpkin Mask, and it came out around 1982 to 1983. This was actually sculpted for the film. This was not a Don Post original. The other 2 were in production prior to Halloween 3, whereas this was sculpted for the film. And a mad little fact about these is, once Don Post got the copies they sent for the film back, they actually sent them to retailers. So there will have been some kids who bought the pumpkin that actually got screen-used versions from Halloween 3 without obviously knowing. And when you think of the world we live in now, when Lucasfilm puts little chips inside of every single prop that's on the Star Wars set, because of how valuable props actually are, that's incredible that Don Post got them back off the film, and rather than keep them as like screen-used versions, they just sent them straight off to retailers. That's a mad fact. Now, they did actually sculpt a little shamrock, but after the film, maybe like a few years later, they actually removed that little shamrock from the side, so it was no longer a Halloween 3. It did just become part of the Don Post line. So yeah, there was only like a 2 or 3 year run where they actually sculpted the little shamrocks into the mask, and then there is copies of the Don Post pumpkin without the little shamrock sculpted on the side. As far as Tott's recreation of this, though, this is the letdown of the set for me, and it's purely down to the colour, basically. And the reason Don Post pumpkins are so vibrant is because they used powder coated painting basically, and it's such a hard paint to replicate, and also it's proper harmful and really toxic. So Tots could never use that now. But it's just, when you look at it, it's really flat. It's kind of got, I mean, I've never held one, but apparently it's got like a really gritty texture to it, and it's just a really matte, flat paint. I haven't even seen many rehauls that actually achieve the look of a Dom Post pumpkin, and it is purely because of how hard it is to replicate a powder coated finish. Basically, it's just a really tough finish to achieve. So even the rehauls don't actually look like a Dom Post pumpkin. It's a really unique mask in that way, to be honest. But as far as Tot's version, like, I've had 2 copies of these now, and my first copy I sold because it was really sloppy. Like, the shamrock was, the silver was all over the pumpkin. It was just a very lazy, sloppy job. And I've got to say, this copy's worse. I somehow downgraded because I sold it. Obviously, I needed to buy it back, so I picked up another one. And yeah, this is a terrible, terrible copy. It's kind of like a peachy orange. It's not orange at all. Obviously, you've got just like loads of sloppy green overlay. The shading in the cracks is it's just lazy, man. It's just a really bad paint job. The shamrock is gritty, and this is the newest mask that I've bought, and obviously you can see that sticker's peeling off already. The shamrock itself is actually coming off. Yeah, man, I've had two of these now, and both of them have been really bad. So at the end of this video, I'm gonna tag on hopefully a better version, because I'm about to repaint this and try and get a flatter finish. So hopefully I end up with a better version of the pumpkin. I'm going to get rid of all the shading there and just try and make it as flat as possible, because obviously the Dom Post pumpkin it's really just matte finish and flat really. So I'm going to get rid of the shading lines there. I'm going to repaint the green, and I'm just going to try and go with a more vibrant, bright orange, just to achieve a better mask. Because, I mean, this really does let the set down, because the witch is really good and the skull is a really good replica. But for some reason, everyone I've seen of these, they just haven't been able to capture how the pumpkin actually looks. And obviously, that's down to the paint method, like I did mention. But I still think you can get a better version than what I've got here now, because this is just a really lazy copy personally, and my last one was slightly better but still very lazy. So yeah, I don't actually love this one, to be honest. But the sculpt itself is pretty cool. I'm also going to add netting in there as well, because Dom Post has black net in there as well, and in the mouth. So I'll do that as well. So hopefully at the end of this video, there'll be an improved version of the pumpkin. But if not, just know that I fucked it up, basically. But yeah, all in all, not the greatest Tots mask, but you need it for the collection, because once I got it, even though it's a letdown, it does look great next to the other two. And when I did have just the witch and the skull, it just didn't look right, man. You need a pumpkin, no matter how poor the paint job is. Like, it's still better to have one. So hopefully, like I say, hopefully I get a rehaul out of it, and it's better. But yeah, we'll see. Right, it is the following day anyway. As soon as I finished filming yesterday, I got started on this rehaul, and it took about 4, maybe 5 coats of orange. And while it hasn't completely got rid of the shading, I think it's done a pretty good job of flattening out the paint job. So yeah, like I say, it was like 4 or 5 coats, to be fair. And then it was just touch up the black there. I used Marbury Monsters Nightshade paint for that, because I really like how grey-black tone. I think that's such a sick paint to use. And it's already pre-mixed with latex as well, so you don't have to mess around with that, because, again, mixing the orange with the latex was... I fucked it up twice, to be honest. It just had clumps of latex in, because I was putting too much latex in the paint. I just can't get that mix right at all, so it would have been handy having one of them nightshade paints in an orange, to be fair. It would have been way more straightforward. Yeah, I'll take that all day. I think it looks a lot more classic. It's got a much more vintage feel to it. Nice, flat, orange paint job, minimal shading through the cracks. Nice solid black, solid green. Yeah, think it's just really give it that classic look. Again, you're never going to get an OG Don Post paint job, but I think that's an improvement on what Tots are putting out, because looking back on that paint job, man, that's a really poor paint job for that mask. It's so lazy. But the sculpt is great. So obviously the mask is there. You just have to paint it up, which, to be fair, that is the case with like quite a few Tots masks. It's very rare you get a Tots mask, open it, display it, and that's it. You usually do something along the lines of customizing it just to get it up to scratch, which on one hand it shouldn't be the case, but I think it's only a problem because the catalogue photos look so much better than the product in hand. And if Tots were just more transparent with what you get in hand, you wouldn't get half the hate for Tots, because it's a £60 mask, or, well, this was like 45 quid or something. If independent artists were selling blank sculpts for £45, no one would bat an eyelid at that. They just wouldn't. And this is a mass-produced mask, so you get a solid sculpt. All in all, that's a solid mask now. I'm really happy with my copy, which, yeah, just a bit of solid orange, black and green, and you've got a much better pumpkin H3. So yeah, I'll take that all day. Right, last up, and I've definitely saved the best till last, is the skull. This is my all-time favourite mask. I think the sculpt is so unique. I think it's genius, considering the concept is just the skull. I think they've achieved so much with such a simple idea. I absolutely adore the sculpt on this mask. Don Post originally had this in production from 1967, and between 1967 and 1982, when Halloween 3 came out, it did have a few alterations. Firstly, between 67 and 70s, it was the brown skull, and it was actually brown undercoat rather than black. The versions in the film, though, were the jumbo-sized non-glow skulls, although in the scene where the kids run into the grocery store and just grab the masks off the shelves, there is a few glow skulls on that shelf, apparently. And the way you can distinguish the difference between a non-glow skull and a glow skull is there's an extra tooth. And that's literally, obviously it glows up, but the main difference is there's an extra tooth on the sculpt. Don Post managed to achieve something absolutely fantastic, especially since the concept is just a skull mask. And how many boring, dull skull masks are there? And yeah, for some reason, they've just managed to achieve so much. And I think it's really the shape of the eyes and like how many teeth they've put in. I think that's the main thing that makes this such an interesting mask. But I also love the paint job as well, because the fact it's a fully black mask and then they just put white over. Tots have done an amazing job of recreating the black coming through, and I just think it gives it such a classic look. Just everything about this mask is absolutely incredible. Like I say, this is my favourite mask of all time, and the dream is to obviously own a Don Post skull. I'm not bothered if it's the latex, if it's the vinyl, the glow, the non-glow. Like, I'm not asked what version it is. I just need to own a Don Post skull at some point in my life. And similar to the witch as well, like, this just evokes vintage Halloween for me, and I'm somehow nostalgic for something that I've never owned. Didn't have a Don Post skull when I was a kid. I didn't watch Halloween 3 until I was in my 20s, and yet somehow, because of how classic this looks, it just makes you think of like early Halloweens. It's just such a strange feeling to be nostalgic about something I've only just bought. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think this is an absolutely perfect mask, perfect sculpt, such a unique look compared to any other skull. Like I was saying about the witch mask, that's a quintessential witch look. That's exactly what a witch mask should look like. This is what every skull mask should look like, but I haven't seen anything that looks like this. Like, this is such a different look, and I think that's why it captures my imagination so much, because it's just not how a skull looks. But it's such a good sculpt of a skull, even though that's not how a skull looks, really. But yeah, I just absolutely love everything about this. And Tots, like, this is easily my favourite Tots mask. I think this is an almost perfect replica, even down to the paint job, the way you can see all the black coming through when you look at early early versions of the Dom Post skull, like that style of painting is there. It's all there. So like Tots have absolutely captured this mask perfectly. And I absolutely adore this. This is easily my favorite mask of all time, my favorite sculpt of all time, and it's an absolute no-brainer. And I am going to pick up the glow in the dark variant as well, because I think I just want to own every variant that comes out of this, because I'll never ever get bored looking at a Dom Post skull. But obviously this is the Tots version, but just I'll never be bored of looking at that, because it's absolutely perfect. Like I was saying before, as a set, they look so much more convincing now. I think while it's not an OG Dom Post paint job, it's a pretty solid effort, and much better than what Tots actually put out. Because yeah, that for me is a poor. The more I look at them pictures beforehand, it's a really bad paint job on this mask. Like I say, I've had 2 copies and both of them were pretty terrible, to be fair. So I'm just happy it's a fairly straightforward job. The only thing I would say is that was way more difficult than I thought it would be. Like trying to get that black in between them cracks. Like, say that's the only part of the mask that is quite sloppy, really. But that was tricky, man. That was a lot more difficult than I actually give it credit for. So I'll just take it, to be honest. But yeah, really happy with the finish. The orange is nice and vibrant, nice and flat as well. It hasn't got a glossy look. I think all in all, I'm just proper happy with that, yeah. But if you did like this video, give it a share around, like it, subscribe to the channel, that'd be massive. Comment which mask is your favourite as well. Mine is still the skull, and always will be. I love the skull mask. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. My set's pretty sick now, to be fair. So nice one for checking the video out. See you next time.